You are listening to CraftCast, the podcast, where soul meets craft. Yes, I'm already laughing because I know we're in for a treat today. Ms. Pam East is joining Patrik and I, and this is a subject that we've all been talking about, which is, oh my gosh, the price of silver went up. Now what do? I'm afraid to open the package. I don't know what to do. I don't know, be creative. People are freezing mid creating. So we want to come up with these wonderful people already have great ideas, but inspiration to help you move forward, to get back in the studio. Don't be afraid. We can make it work. You don't have to stop being creative. Thank you very much, Pam, for coming on and talking to us, and always,
Thank you,
Patrik.
Pam.
Thank you for having me. This
You're
is a topic near and dear to my heart.
I know, right? It's well, no, first let's do a real check. How much has silver metal clay gone up about in how quick a time? Because
About a year, a little over a year, or I would say a year and a half, it's gone up 150%. We've gone from $28 to about it's leveled off now around between 75 and 85 is where it's drifting. It peaked at 125, but it's come down back down, but it's people go, oh, the price has come down. Well, no, the price has leveled off is what's happened.
okay.
And it hasn't really come down. It's leveled off, which is what always happens with these things. And it's
Right.
leveled off at around, like I said, it's between 75 and 85. And that we're talking about metals pricing here, not clay pricing.
Right.
So, and when you buy clay, you're not just buying the silver, you're buying the process, which is intense. They've got to atomize this stuff, and they've come up with these formulas to make it workable for us. And, that's all part of what you pay for.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
Especially,
So that's the change. Okay. Just so we're clear because when we go into panic, you lose track of exactly what the cost is.
Yeah, and if you want to translate that to clay, clay, silver clay, 50-gram pack of clay, right? Silver clay right now is, depending upon the brand and the day, $300 to $325 for a 50-gram pack of clay, and 50 gram, be aware that 50 gram makes a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
That is a significant amount of clay.
Yeah.
So,
and they're talking about pricing as well. A lot of times people will see, oh, the price of silver has gone down, and then they, look at the clay and it hasn't been reflected in the clay yet. And so it's like, okay, well, it just really depends on who is actually selling it. But a lot of times, these companies will buy more clay when the price is high, and they still have that inventory. And so that reduction can't be shown until they buy the next batch of clay, which is a little bit lower.
I've been seeing that too, that conversation. Well, why, the price has come down. And the other thing that people don't realize is the price hasn't really come down. It's stabilized.
Yeah.
And, and these companies,
that's a good point.
They were buying the clay, the silver to make the clay when it was high. And it's not a day by day translation. It's like it has to flow through the system. And so even though the silver's stabilizing, like you said, Patrik, they're still working with a higher cost material.
All right. So now let's bring it down to being really realistic. You said the 50 grams pack. Let's talk. What's the price of a 10-gram pack for people who want to make 2 pieces? They could do a little ring. We show how to make small things. How is that to make it real for people? I don't know the current price of that.
You're going to have to give me a second.
All right, good.
Thank
you.
I think in 50-gram packs, I can get that price real quick.
All right.
But it's 10 grams. I tend to more think in terms of like 20. Because I make pendants and things like that.
Okay.
But for earrings or things like that, or buttons,
Right.
there's a lot of things that you can do with 10 grams of clay.
Right. Yes.
And okay, so 10 grams right now is about $65, and 20 grams is about $130.
Okay.
And
so that's And when you're
And
talking about silver, that's still like you're going to come away with precious metal. You're starting in a thing, making something. It's an
and you've got,
investment, but
don't forget that you're also getting a very approachable, honestly, low cost process. I
yeah,
mean, when you start comparing working with metal, what you need in terms of tools to work with metal clay versus what you need and the skills that you need to work with sheet metal,
right.
it's we're now got a product that's going to let you have immediate success
Yeah,
Yeah.
instead of years and years of study to be able to make something attractive. And so you're going to pay for it on the front end or the back end, right?
yeah,
So don't discount the value of working with a material that is so friendly and so forgiving
yeah.
And
Well, you
and
yeah, in
can
terms of,
reuse
and
it.
recoverable and
Right.
recoverable.
yes,
I can
definitely.
take, if I make a piece in silver clay, here we're getting into the I'm afraid to open the package. If I can make a piece in silver clay, and if I get all the way to the greenware stage and I hate it and I'm not going to fire it, I can turn that all the way back into
Start
clay
again.
again.
Yeah,
It's not ruined.
yeah,
It's I can go all the way back to clay
yeah.
from something that's completely dried.
And listen,
And
I'm going to brag about both your classes on CraftCast. You walk people through every single steps and any problems they have so they can really have a success
right.
making something. And that's huge. I always laugh because I know both of you and other teachers. And one of the things I always say is, oh, they've done every mistake and everything that didn't work, so you don't have to.
And Allison gets to hear about them as they
I do.
go
Yeah.
along.
Through text and late night. But
Like,
It's like a
everybody
live
does it.
stream of
It is. It's like I I adore hearing and I understand the process, but that's the great thing. Then the people taking the class do not have to make that error and can be successful. So
yeah.
that's a great thing. So, all right. So that's easily explained. Now, what do you say to people then as far as, okay, how to stretch the clay or think more creatively? Is there a thought process? Patrick, what do you do first when you're thinking that way? I know you combine a lot of different
I
materials.
do. I use a lot of mixed media stuff as well, and I try not to limit myself just to silver. But one of the first things I think that people forget about is that a lot of us have a little stash of bits and pieces that we can recycle into our own clay. You mentioned that, Pam, and it's like I kind of forget where I've stashed them all. So I like to go through and just like, okay, let me find all that stuff, let me reconstitute it and make some fresh clay, and sort of go from there, and that way I don't have to buy new stuff.
Hmm.
But one of the things I do is, and I'll second this because I think, Pam, we were talking about this earlier about making things that are thin and have volume but still have structure, and they look heavy but they aren't. And I think that one of the first times that I saw somebody do this really successfully was Barbara Becker Simon. And she did this fabulous chain necklace with these giant links about this big. And it looked like it weighed a ton, because I mean, each link was about that big, and
I
about that
remember that
thick.
necklace.
Yeah, yeah. And it was like, it was all made out of 2 cards thick. And and the key, and this is kind of a technique that we can think about as well, is she fired it multiple times. So instead of trying to do everything in one firing, she was smart enough to break it down into steps and say, okay, I'm going to fire this first and then this second, and then I'm going to put these together and fire it a third time. And that way she was able to build something that was 2 cards thick, but was actually very complicated to
And for
create.
people who don't understand two card thick, if you want a visual, it's like think of two playing cards thick. Like,
Right.
Sorry, it's
That
the
would
lingo there.
be
Sorry about that.
yeah,
that would be half a millimeter.
there you go. So that's thin, but that's
Yeah.
really cool then to pull that off. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder why was she back then? She wasn't probably doing it to save clay, but that's a great concept that you can pull all that off and not have to use a lot of clay. But I love how you both put in mixed media, negative
Mixed media.
space, different
Yeah.
ways of creating. I mean,
Copper and silver play together really well. You can combine copper and silver. Don't try and combine bronze and silver.
oh, okay.
They do
Okay.
not play well
Okay, good.
together.
Thank you.
You can product it's copper is the good neighbor. Copper will play with bronze and copper will play with silver. But silver
Oh,
and
interesting.
bronze don't like each other.
Now, are you talking about like mixing them in the wet clay stage? Like the
Correct.
mukimiga? Okay, right.
Not
Wait a
just
minute.
mocha magane, but adding embellishments. Like I could have a copper piece and I could make a little silver embellishment. So I'm only using a very small amount of silver, but I could attach that copper piece to the silver piece, both in greenware,
Oh,
and then fire them together at the same time and get beautiful results. And I've
okay.
done this, a lot. And so I can get those little sparks of silver, but I'm not using a lot of silver. So that's the thought process there is that you can interlock these things.
I love
They
that.
play well together. So if I can still get my silver, but
But
not use as much of it.
what you just said, Pam, is what I love. You said a spark of silver. I think
Yeah,
a spark goes more powerful than a whole glob, let's say. You know what
it
I mean?
can.
Yeah,
It absolutely can because it's going to stand out in a way
right,
that a whole piece isn't necessarily going to, you
right.
know. Um, I'm leaning right now, I'm personally leaning heavily into the base metals and seeing what I can do with the base metals and trying to make, what can I do in bronze and what can I do in copper. Um, and that's great, but again, going back to, we really love the silver. And one of the things I like to tell people who are afraid of the price of the silver is practice in the bronze, practice in the
Right.
copper. I mean, if you can buy a pack of copper for $25, that's a cheap practice material. And you can work out your design, you can work on your skills, you can work on, your joints, everything that goes into making a piece. If you're practicing with an inexpensive material that behaves exactly the same as silver clay, that's going to increase your confidence and
Yeah.
give you higher success when you are ready to open that package of silver. Oh, I've made something I really like. I love this. I want to see it in silver now. And now
Yeah,
you're
it's great.
ready.
Yeah,
It always goes easier when you're making it again,
that's a
Yeah,
good point.
yeah. Yeah,
Practice
I mean,
point.
this is
Um,
interesting because it's what traditional metalsmith would usually do, especially when you're learning traditional metalsmithing, is like you start out with copper and then you graduate to the more, precious stuff like the silver and gold. So, there's some precedent for that.
Yeah. Oh, when I did silversmithing way back, you did it, they wouldn't let you move to gold until you completed certain amount of projects in silver, and then you moved
Mm.
to gold. And so, yeah, I think it's great. Plus, it takes the angst pressure off when you're trying something out that way. You're not as like sweating bullets or like,
yeah,
so
so there's a freedom in
yeah,
that. I
yeah,
mean, if you're not fretting over the materials and it's kind of interesting to work with limitations. You
that's
know,
my next thing to talk
you
about.
know, you know, the the creativity comes. I don't know about you, Patrick, but usually for me, the beginning of a project is a question. It's I'm trying to solve a problem.
Yes.
It's like, all right, I want to enamel on copper, but I want to have the color be as brilliant as on silver. So that's maybe a question that I'm trying to answer. There's all kinds of questions. And then the creativity is trying to make the materials fit into the parameters of whatever the question is. Sorry.
Listen, my thing is how you use the limits that you just said as a positive inspiration. I'd mentioned to Patrick when we were talking once about, I remember when, I don't know what project it was, but you're only allowed to work in blue that week. Everything has to be in blue. All of a sudden, you're seeing that as a whole different thing. But when you
Right.
put a limit on yourself, it can be an exciting way to break through in your creativity.
In
It
a
can
lot of ways,
also take a, okay, go ahead, Patrick.
I was going to say, in a lot of ways, it's easier because you're starting from, you know, here's what I can't do, right? Put all that aside. Okay, now I'm going to focus in on what I can do. For me, a lot of times at the beginning, the field is so wide open. It's like, oh, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this, I could do
Right.
this. And then what's appropriate for the idea that I have? And then, when you have those limits, it's like, okay, I can't do that. Now I can really focus in. And I think that does make you more creative
Yeah.
because you have to think outside of the box,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of advantages to that. It can also be, well, limiting.
But if you've got fewer choices to make,
Yes.
people get decision paralysis.
Yes.
Yes.
It's like if you have too many options, you can't choose anything. But
Yeah.
the minute you have a limit, all right, now I've answered a ton of those questions, and now I have far fewer things to choose from. That's easier, than
I agree.
it
Yeah.
eliminates it. And I think that's exactly what you were saying is, getting rid of some of that decision paralysis.
Yeah. It's a good thing when you have certain restraints. Young woman who teaches, you know her well on CraftCast, Ms. Wiz Stern and Genius. And she just did a class on how to make these really great big rings saving silver. And it's like, oh, and it's like so you don't have to worry about using too much silver, doing it this way, and then having fun with your stones. So again, she took a boundary and made it work for something. It's like, how can I use only that much silver and still have a great ring? I think those are great creative problems to play with, frankly.
Yeah, getting into limited materials and negative space. And like
Yeah.
I've been working a lot recently with frames,
Yeah.
and you've seen the shadow boxes that I've been doing, but you take the back off of that and make it just a frame, and it's very lightweight. And now what can I do inside that frame
We know it. We're going to be talking
that
to people. We're planning something.
and well, but you can do a lot of things inside that
Yes.
frame that
Yes.
don't use
Yeah.
more silver,
Yes.
Yeah.
and there's a million things you can do inside of a frame, and that you still get the silver of the frame.
Yeah.
And then that's not the only way I do it. Another way I'll do it is that was with those my Shape Right tools, right? I was making the bezels with the Shape
Yep.
Right tools.
Yep. Yep.
But you can also extrude, and now you're talking an even smaller amount of silver,
Yeah.
where you can make a little frame with a very lightweight small frame with extruded clay, and there's
Mhm.
rather a lot you can build on that doesn't have a lot of weight. It's if I'm building on a form, I can add syringe embellishment, which is very pretty but very open.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
can uh, I can use. There's a lot of organic materials that I can use to create shape and form um, with the silver that burn out and leave you a pretty lightweight piece. Um,
And I mean, and I think this is what helps what you're saying, Pam, with people who are fearful. It's like, oh, wait, there's a new creative inspiration way to think about it. Use it as a challenge,
yes,
not as a
absolutely.
limitation. And that's what I think is fun. Hey, listen, people have things like that they do I've seen it on cooking shows where you hear up four
Mhm.
ingredients. What can you make to eat out of this? I would fail miserably in that respect, but it's fun to have a challenge when you're only given a certain amount of materials and what can you make from it?
And
Pam, you
the
were
other,
mentioning, sorry,
go
you were
ahead.
mentioning negative space. Can you talk
Yeah.
about that a little bit? It's because, from a design
And
standpoint.
explain what that means to people who are
Yeah.
not designers.
So I'm thinking more heavily about the space between silver and, so I've got a frame and I want to put something in that frame. I'm not going to fill the whole frame, right? I want to leave gaps. I want to leave openings. They create a lot of interest. It when you have an opening, when you can see what's behind a piece, that's very engaging. So for me, it's like I'm thinking about like, all right, I'm doing this project at Center, which is this freeform pendant, and it's I'm doing an extruded frame, and then I'm using cheesecloth saturated with silver to create these flowing forms.
Mm,
But I'm not using very much of it, right? I'm thinking about where am I leaving the gaps? Where am I leaving it open? How do I create balance in the piece?
Right.
But and so the when I say negative space, I'm thinking about the open spaces.
correct. Right.
And so it still needs to be balanced. It still needs to have flow, but it doesn't have to be completely covered.
Well,
Yeah,
that's the
absolutely.
thing. Yeah. And then you also, it's not when people say negative space, it's not that it's not a positive thing. When you look at the piece, you're not thinking, oh, look at all that empty space. It's part of
No,
the
no,
design.
Right,
it's a
right.
design element.
Right.
Negative space in art is what's between the focal elements.
Right.
It can
So
be very powerful,
yeah,
Right.
and
and
intentional. Intentional is the real
intentional.
word. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm approaching them in a very purposeful way.
Yeah.
I want I like my pieces to have a little mystery sometimes, and I think that openings create that
I
that
agree.
Mhm.
that what's behind, opening the question of what's behind.
And there's an example right there, Pam, of being able to use something that might be, well, I don't want to use so much clay to create a new look and feeling to something by doing exactly what you just said. So I think there are always design possibilities and different things that are possible. I know, Patrick, I love your class when you taught us all about concrete.
Yeah.
Someone saw a piece of mine here, and you guys, I don't do a lot. They wanted to buy it. I'm like, no, that's just concrete in a bezel. I'll show you how to make it.
It's just
So
concrete. It's not just concrete though, and I think this
it
is kind
isn't.
of where we're talking about,
Yeah,
especially clay. It's like it's what you do with it,
correct.
right? It's really what you do with it. It's the concept. It's how it's presented. It's how it's finished, how it's polished, and all the design and everything that goes into it.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
what else goes into it? And so she's coming over, and I'm like, I will show you everything Patrick taught me about concrete.
yeah,
So, and
yeah.
add it into whatever. So, I think that's the fun thing too, is that, when you see something that appeals to you, it's appealing to you creatively and you're getting inspired. She didn't know it was concrete. I'm like, it's concrete, not diamonds. We can
Um,
do it.
Yeah, yeah.
just some other thoughts about getting inspiration.
Yes, yes.
I've been working with, as you know, I've been working with buttons recently.
Hmm.
Um, and I spent a couple of hours wandering through Goodwill and wandering through um, Value Village and these thrift stores, just looking at stuff. And it was
I love
very,
doing that.
there's some really weird stuff out there. Let me
I love
let
that.
me
Yeah.
tell you. But it's very it was very interesting because I'm not a seamstress. I'm not a um, a fiber artist. And here I am making these buttons, and the obvious thing to me was, well, let me go see if I can find a cute jacket that would look nice with handmade buttons on it. I mean, that was, which is very straightforward. I didn't really find anything that I wanted to do that with, but I ended up starting to see other things and ultimately landed on a handbag, and it was like, oh, here's this ugly gray little handbag that has no personality whatsoever. And I start adding buttons to this thing, and suddenly it's a designer piece.
Okay. Caveat. I saw this picture and the buttons. There would be a class. It's mind blowing. It's a little more than just some ugly little bag. So, yes, this is a whole new fantastic trend to do. If you knit, if you already have a sweater, you're going to love these freaking
You
buttons.
know,
It's another way of being creative. Just
but there's
saying.
not a lot of material in a button,
No,
right?
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can take a handbag and transform it into a designer piece
Hmm.
with a few buttons.
Yep.
And so I'm still using my metal clay. I'm still using my creativity. And I'm still making a statement, but I'm using less material, or I'm
Yeah.
using bronze, or I'm using copper, which also look fabulous on
Those are my favorite, the ones
garments.
you showed me. The
Yeah,
the bracelet you did with, I guess that was copper
I
and bronze.
copper and bronze together.
Oh my gosh.
I
Yeah.
did a button bracelet,
Yeah.
which,
No,
it's
it's great.
and it's really cool looking, and it
Yeah.
was not difficult to make.
And the color is beautiful.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
color of the metals came
And
out
It
really
is. It's
nice.
beautiful. Oh.
once you start looking at buttons, you're talking about going through the secondhand store. But once you start really looking at buttons, they're
Yeah.
amazing.
Oh,
And it's
yes.
not
Oh,
just a round disc with four
yeah.
holes in it. There's so many different types of buttons.
For
I
My
years in New York City, for years there was a store called Tender Buttons. Years and years and years. I went there since I was little. It was an entire boutique store right next to Bloomingdale's that only did buttons from old,
Wow.
antique, new.
I collect antique or vintage check cut glass buttons,
Mm.
and I have jars of them. And these vintage beads, you can make molds of those to
Yeah.
use with
Yeah.
your metal clay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My friend
And
Todd actually has a formal button collection. He
Oh,
has them all
really?
on cards and
Oh,
just I was looking at him thinking, I had no idea.
do
I
you
had
ever
no
go over to his
idea.
house with your molding compound and say, "Can I
Oh,
just be alone in here for a little while?"
yeah, I would like to.
never go anywhere without molding compound.
Oh yeah,
Come on.
yeah.
That's just how you all understand that. Yeah. I mean, and look at us talking how inspiration pops up that way. So I think boundaries can be a great thing. I mean, listen, both Patrick and I were art directors in our past life careers. You got a boundary called the budget all the time, and you
Yeah.
And the
had to make it.
deadline.
Yeah, a deadline and a budget. And I had mentioned this to Patrick before. This was a
There's
great example of this for me, where um, I was doing Disney sets and built a beautiful set. We shot all the Halloween on there. And then I had something else to shoot, a Western style. I needed another set. And my producer said, "You used up all of your budget. You have like $100 left." I'm like, "Oh." So now we put up brown paper everywhere in the studio and on posts. And one of my young people who's a great artist went in there and hand painted an entire Western scene with horses and posts. And it was adorable, and shot the whole thing there. So that's, to me, is like when you use that, is like, oh, well, now let me see what we can do. And it
Yeah.
can be a great thing.
I've never found anything more inspiring than a deadline, though. You
Well,
know,
we talk about that. Yeah.
Yes, that is
Yep.
motivation for sure.
Yeah. We do all know that. I believe I've given both of you a few deadlines in my past. But
yes.
we wouldn't get anything done without a deadline.
Yeah, it's
It
true.
would be different, or we wouldn't get it done in a proper time frame. So that's a different motivation for sure. Well, all right. What would you say as a closing statement? Can you think of something to say to people who are afraid to open their clay they bought and now it's cost a lot more money? What would you say as you know, something, little inspiration? I think we've given lots of
We've
inspiration.
got a lot,
Yeah.
really,
Do it. Just do it.
well, it's not doing you any good sitting on the shelf. That's for
Thank you.
darn
There
sure.
you go. There you go.
It's like
Enjoy the
it's
process.
going to be forgiving. You
Yeah.
can practice in other materials,
Yeah.
in cheaper materials, and you just looking at the package isn't ever going to be as satisfying as actually making something.
Even if you
100%.
don't love it, you still will have you usually enjoy the process. I think even
Yeah.
when you don't love it, you still get hooked to want to do it again to make it work the second time.
Yeah,
And you wear it and
absolutely.
people compliment it and you're
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, I made this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've talked about this in your other podcasts, but creativity, there's this door, right? People go, "I'm waiting to be inspired." And it's
Yeah.
like, well, you're going to wait forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get my most inspiration while I'm working,
Yes.
because that's when the creative juices are flowing, is when I'm
Yes.
actually working. So that's another vote for open up the base metal clay, because
Yeah.
now you're working, you're getting ideas, and then once you have your ideas, then go into your silver clay.
And we talk a lot about, I know in other classes, make something like people who are already working in metal clay. Just make a bunch of granules then. If you're not feeling it, just start by whatever clay you have around. Make a bunch of little things that you can use. And all of a sudden, in the process of just doing that kind of production work, you get an idea
Mm-hmm.
that, all the time. And then you're like, oh, and then you're off on something. So, and listen, I say to my son who's in the creative entertainment business, when you're feeling the low of not being able to do a little production, that's just part of the creative circle, not outside of the creative circle. It's part of the creative circle. I always laugh, not laugh, haha, but Pam, when I get a text from you and like, you finally finished something, but then you texted me once, I have nothing left. I'll never think of anything again. I'm like,
Yes.
well, you're at that part of the circle. That's what that's called.
Part of the process.
That's part of the process. It's like, I have used up every bit of creativity I've ever had.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, you're at the, 5:30 mark on. Yeah, I know that's part of it.
And then 2 days later, it's like,
correct.
Why do we do this?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
So that is part of the creative process, is what I always say.
That reminds me of there's a button. I have a whole bunch of badges that I wear when I'm teaching. And one of them is, failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of success. And, it's like, you have to go through that in order to grow and learn.
Absolutely.
And build.
Right.
And that's why I love both of you, because you both do that and come on and teach on CraftCast, and you've done all of that for us, so we don't have to repeat it.
I don't know, and sometimes we show our mistakes, which is
we
great.
love that. Well, why we love that is because that's why I'm a big fan of that, because when it happens to you, you don't feel like a total failure. You just say, oh, it's part of the process, not that you're. So that's why it's so important. And then how to fix it. It's like, oh, I love that. So, onward we go. Making more. Well, thank you, Miss Pam East. Remember years ago when I called you Miss Pam West?
Yes, in print even. It's like, no.
I want to blame it on autocorrect, but maybe it wasn't. But Pam, thank you for everything that you do. You're a master teacher at this, and your inspiration. And thank you for coming on and chatting with us. Patrik, I love everything you do. You're another amazing teacher. I am blessed with being able to talk to both of you, and to promote you and host your classes. It's a treat for me. So thank you so much. I look forward to more classes, more deadlines. And
more creativity.
And more creativity. If you're listening now, just come over to craftcast.com. You can look under instructors under either Patrik or Pam, and it'll pull up all of their classes if you've heard something that in particular interests you. And email us at support@craftcast.com, then we can direct you to something, because sometimes it's overwhelming to find exactly what you want to learn, and we're here to help. So thank you, kids. Go be creative.
Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure. Bye-bye. I hope you enjoyed today's chat. You can follow us and subscribe at Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And please take a look at all our amazing video tutorials at craftcast.com.